Hey, this is Deb from Truthification Chronicles, and I wanted to share this meme that I saw on Facebook this morning. Let's talk about this school walkout. Schools across the U.S. sanctioned it, so it isn't actually a walkout. It is simply young people conforming to government authority by speaking a government-approved opinion in a government-approved venue. And that opinion is that citizens should have their rights taken away by the same government whose opinion they're expressing. Young Americans are marching to demand less freedom from their government, and everyone is pretending that their actions are somehow brave and rebellious. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what indoctrination looks like. And that is by thefreethoughtproject.com. And it was posted by People Over Politics Facebook page. So I wanted to share this because as a retired teacher, I have some specific thoughts about this, okay? I am all for kids expressing their opinions, okay? I have no problems with that. I have no problems with them even doing an assembly, getting together, speaking their minds. That's freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. I've got that. That's not a problem. What I have a problem with is I have a problem with it happening during school time and being allowed and sanctioned by teachers and administration. This is my problem. Here's why. On the first day of class, when the students came in, you typically, for the first day, teachers sit there and they say, okay, here are the classroom rules. Here's what you have to do. You do this. These are the rules. And here is what we're going to be doing this year. And it's the most boring day under the sun. Well, for me, I was a French and Spanish teacher. So for me, the biggest thing I wanted to do was get down to doing some language work to get them to start immersing themselves in the language. And the way to accomplish that was to start the actual teaching on the first day. However, you do have to cover some of those things. So I actually split my rules, covering my rules, over 3 different days. The first day was I have a responsibility. My responsibility as the teacher in this class. You see, I've been hired by people, by your parents. I would tell the kids, I've been hired by your parents. I've been hired by this community. I have been hired by the people in this area, in these little towns. We had 2 or 3 little towns. It was a very rural area. So we had a few towns around that fed into the school. And so I said, I've been hired by the people of these towns. I've been hired by the people in this area, that live in this county, in this region. I have been hired by these people to teach you French and Spanish. That's my responsibility. My responsibility is to give you the best instruction in French and Spanish that I can do. And so I have the responsibility to create these learning activities that will get you to that point. Now, I'm going to use the expertise that I've learned over the years to build this together and to craft these lessons in such a way that they will give you the best opportunity to learn French and Spanish. Okay, this is my responsibility. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. I have to be a good steward of my time because every minute in here, those people are paying me for every minute in here. So I have to be very responsible so that we use our time wisely. As a teacher, I was being paid by the taxpayers. My salary was paid by taxpayers. Therefore, I am responsible to all taxpayers for how I run my class. And what was I being paid for? I was not being paid for supervising demonstrations. I was not being paid to promote one political ideology over another. I was not being paid for that. However, unfortunately, many teachers today are using their classroom time to promote an ideology. And this bothers me. It bothered me when I was teaching. Like I said, I'm retired now because of my health issues, but I desperately loved teaching. I would stand outside my classroom some days and just go, wow, I get paid for doing this. This is so cool. Because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working with the kids. I enjoyed helping them learn another language. And I saw it as a responsibility. Promoting an ideology either direction was not what I was being paid for. And so this particular thing bothers me because it was using school time to do. Now, if the kids would have gotten together out of school, they would have gotten together and they would have done this, that would have been fine. But I can tell you as a teacher, first of all, a lot of the kids who walked out did it purely because it got them out of class. I will tell you that. In some ways, the reason I did the responsibility thing, because I wanted kids to understand where I was coming from, that I wanted them to think a little bit differently about teachers, because teachers do have that responsibility. That is what we're being paid for, to teach them that subject. Well, in this case, here's what happened. We have kids that are being encouraged not to learn, not to spend their time wisely in class. These teachers took on a different role. They took on the role of being social activists. And this is what bothers me, because we are not paying our teachers to be social activists. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of teachers who have become that in the last few years. I hear it in how they talk to the kids, and I also see a lot of change in our textbooks. This was something that I noticed probably 15 years ago. I started seeing some major changes in how textbooks in foreign languages, how textbooks were put together, what word vocabulary lists they thought were more important than others. And when it came down to it, I started seeing that there was a lot of social activism being put into the textbooks. And you see, when you're choosing a textbook as a teacher, there's a community group that you work with parents and everything. So it's not just the teacher says, this is the book I want. There is a wide group. But most people, especially in foreign languages, most people wouldn't have noticed the difference. In fact, I doubt if a lot of foreign language teachers noticed. I'm sorry, world language teachers now. I was on the cusp of that change, which is just to illustrate exactly what I'm talking about. There was a change because you didn't want to call them foreign languages. You wanted to call them world languages. That was a social activist change. Okay, so this is the problem I had. I had no problem with kids expressing, themselves, with kids using their First Amendment rights. I have no problems with that. I do have a problem with it happening during school, on school time, taxpayer dime, and I have a real problem with teachers facilitating it. That is a huge issue. I've been retired for a few years now, but the last few years when I was teaching, I had to take some classes to keep my license current and everything. And one of the classes I took, it was through a Christian university actually. It was a distance learning type thing, but it was through a Christian university. And in it, they had us write an essay at the end of this class showing how we were going to be a better agent of change because of this class. That's the term that's used, agent of change. Teachers are considered agents of change. Now I want you to think about that for a minute. If teachers are an agent of change, what kind of change are they making? Now obviously I know that the person looking at it will say, well, they want them to learn, these kids to learn. No, see, that's not what agent of change really means. This idea that teachers are changing things is not what we're supposed to be doing. We're not paid to change things. That's a social activist term. We're not paid to change. Hey, hope and change, And they were hoping it would change, and it changed all right, but it was not for the better. A teacher should not be an agent of change. A teacher should be someone who imparts knowledge and crafts these different activities for kids to be able to participate in, to be able to do so that they can accomplish the goal of learning that subject. Not just learning it so they can regurgitate it for a test, but acquiring it to the point where they can actually use that knowledge for other purposes. And this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be agents of change. Teachers should not be. That is not our purpose. And I really was very offended by that. In fact, I wrote the organization, the school, letter telling them that I did resent that term being used, especially when it was a Christian university, because that was not a term that should be used or applied to teachers. That is something that change is not teachers. I mean, I understand they probably, maybe, took it as we're changing the world by educating people. Yeah, I don't think that's what was really meant by the people that wrote it. I really don't. I think that is a terminology that was used because that's where the leftist organizations, teaching organizations, are pushing people. And I was somebody who stood up very much against the leftist organizations. I know I had a lot of teachers that almost everybody was part of the union. I wasn't. And it was to my detriment that I wasn't, because I then, because of our state laws, I had no protection. Well, supposedly the union had to represent me, even though I didn't pay any union dues. They had to represent me. Well, what that meant was I was not allowed to have my own council represent me. I had to rely on them. Well, they didn't want to represent me because I didn't pay into them. So when it came down time for, if it came down time for them to represent me, they did a very poor job. So yes, and we were in a situation. So I know, I speak from experience. These people, there is this big leftist push into our teachers. If you look, like I said, most of the people I worked with were in the union. And the union, even though teachers' unions usually have about 50-50 Republican Democrat proportions of membership, the things that they stand for, the legislation they lobby for is like 90-some% Democrat. So there is a huge difference here between what the people actually believe and what the union represents. And this was a huge problem as I was working with them, because I didn't want to support those things. That's why I financially did not want to join, because of that. And I was told many times, well, just go ahead and join and you can change it from inside. It's not possible, because the only way someone, I mean, you may be able to elect a person that's, the head of the union in your particular place, but even that, it's going to have to be somebody who agrees with the higher ups. And if you can't agree with the majority, half of what the higher ups are saying, then how will you ever rise in a union? You cannot get somebody whose opinions oppose the 90% of democratic legislation they're supporting. You can't get those. You can't get anyone who opposes all that into any position of power in a union. You just can't. So it's a stacked deck. It is going to be leftist, no matter what. And I like school vouchers. I think school vouchers are an excellent idea, because then kids get to choose, kids and parents especially, who are the taxpayers, get to choose. If a school's not doing its job, they shouldn't be forced to send their child there. Why would you do that to a child? If the school is not doing its job, and there are many schools that aren't, then you need to be able to choose to go to a different school. So I wanted to share this today. I could go on and on about the unions and stuff, and who knows, probably there will be one, a video somewhere along the line on that. But that's not what my major focus is on this. What I wanted to do was show you that this school walkout, being sanctioned by administrators and faculty, and taking place on school time was a misuse of tax dollars, and it was using our tax dollars to fund something that not only is political in nature, but it is contrary to our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And that's what we have to understand. This march was something that should never have happened in schools or on school grounds. It was not something for that. The kids should have taken it elsewhere. The administration and faculty should have made that clear that if you want to protest, that is your prerogative, but school is going to go on as it should, because these teachers have a responsibility to our community to teach you these subjects. They're not being paid to monitor your activist activities. Okay? You have the right to do this, to walk out, to do whatever you want, but you do not have the right to interrupt a day of learning for our students in this school. This is what this school is being paid for, to ensure that you get every minute of education you can get. Now, I know they're saying, oh, well, this is teaching them about history and being a responsible citizen. No, it wasn't. No, don't let anybody tell you that, because the kids that wanted to go against this were bullied and pressured into it. When teenagers are faced with a choice, you do what your friends want. And that's what happened. A lot of kids did it just so they could get out of class. A lot of kids did it because they were pressured by the other kids and by the administrations and faculty to do it. So there was a lot of bullying, a lot of pressure going on, and we as citizens of the United States need to stand up against that kind of bullying and pressure. We need to make sure that our kids are not put in that position in school. That is a dangerous position to be in. It is inserting political propaganda into their minds, and it is exalting one political ideology over another. And that's what our schools should never, ever be involved with. So, anyway, that's my little rant on this. I'm sorry, I just really have, when it comes to teaching things, it bothers me a lot what I'm seeing in schools today. So, I want to thank you for stopping by, and I hope you found something useful in here. Make sure that you keep your school from getting involved in politics and from promoting social activism as something within their classrooms. This is not the place for it. This is not what schools are supposed to be doing. Teachers have a responsibility. They're being paid by you, the taxpayer, and they need to be responsible to you for what they're doing. And their job is to teach these subjects. It is not to do all this other stuff, and it is certainly not to inject their side of politics into their classroom. So, thanks for stopping by, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.